2 years has passed since the Pharaoh freed the cupbearer and restored his life, and executed the baker by execution of hanging. It has also been 2 years since the Pharaoh himself had a dream. Pharaoh's dream had him standing by the Nile River. Then out of the river come 7 cows, fine looking and fat, and they fed in the meadow. Then another 7 cows came up after them out of the river, ugly and gaunt, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the river. Research reveals that the 2 Hebrew phrases used here can literally be interpreted as terrible looking and thin of flesh. It was a life-like experience, and while it was a dream, it was also a message from God. Pharaoh wakes up and knows that the experience was not just a random event, and was troubled by it. After falling asleep, he has another dream. This time, he saw 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. The King James Version, which we typically use here on Diggin' Deeper, uses the word corn instead of grain, but during this period of history, corn did not exist. This does not mean that it's an error, but an example of how language can change things. As in the first dream, there were 7 cows, and another 7 came forth. Here, there are 7 crops of grain, or corn, and then another 7 ears thin and blighted by the east wind, so it appears the second set of 7 grain heads seen by Pharaoh look like they've been parched and ruined by this blasting desert wind. Pharaoh's actions let us know that he knows something about the dreams we're troubling. And if the dreams were more than just dreams, ruined crops could be catastrophic. Before he wakes up, he sees the 7 thin heads devoured the 7 plump and full heads. What could this mean for Pharaoh? Pharaoh was uncertain and troubled by the dreams, so he sent forward for anyone who could help, including magicians and advisors or wise men. He knew something wasn't right and wanted to understand what. During ancient cultures such as Egypt, there existed a lot of false traditions like medicines, spiritism, and mysticism mixed with religion as methods to reach the divine. In the previous chapter, Joseph had said that knowledge of dreams belonged to God. And while Pharaoh knew something was not right, he did not have the knowledge to go to God to interpret these dreams. The ways in which he went about interpreting the dreams were unable to reveal deeper knowledge and meaning, and when there was no real answer given, the cupbearer spoke up and mentioned the name of Joseph. He tells the Pharaoh of his experience when he and the baker were thrown into jail, and had dreams that confused them both, but Joseph had accurately interpreted them. Pharaoh had to be impressed by this. And while we are unsure whether he believed the cupbearer completely, he was desperate, so he sent for Joseph. The old saying, desperate times call for desperate measure. And while the other methods had failed, perhaps Joseph can be of assistance. We are not told, but maybe Pharaoh trusted this man and sent for Joseph without hesitation. Although the cupbearer did mention Joseph's name to Pharaoh, it took him 2 years to do so, and when Pharaoh sent for Joseph, he shaved and changed his clothes and came in unto Pharaoh. Pharaoh tells Joseph that he has a dream and needs it interpreted, but nobody can do so. But he has heard of the good works from Joseph. But Joseph responds that it's God, not him, that can give a good answer. Pharaoh tells Joseph the dreams that he had and the visions that he saw. Joseph listens and responds. The dream of Pharaoh is one. God has showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. Or God means to show Pharaoh exactly what he is about to do on the earth. Joseph further explains the 7 thin cows and 7 thin heads of grain represent a second time period, one of famine. This shortage will be so severe that it will entirely undo the 7 years of abundance. And while this may not be good news whatsoever, the situation can turn dire really quick. There is hope, as Pharaoh knows, so he can act accordingly. there will be good times and bad times, as 7 years of prosperity will be upon the land, but followed by 7 years of famine. The famine will be horrendous, as it will devastate and consume the land of Egypt. The situation will be so bad that all the good that had been experienced prior will be forgotten. And because Pharaoh had 2 dreams, these events will come to pass, and quickly. The events were fixed, and there's no reversing the decisions. Joseph does inform the Pharaoh that he needed to put together a team of wise and discerning men to manage the crisis that will fall upon the land, and he does. Joseph informs them to collect 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt in the 7 plentiful years. This should serve to us as a lesson to be prepared for bad times, as an emergency is not beneath any of us, and Joseph was teaching the Pharaoh and his people to be prepared for what was about to come. The food collected during the good times will serve as reserves during the bad times. While Pharaoh may not have liked hearing what was to come, he took Joseph's advice and did what was instructed, asking if there was anyone else in the land that was filled with God. When Pharaoh refers to Joseph as a man like this, he's not being condescending or belittling Joseph, but he understands that Joseph is full of knowledge and full of God's Spirit. Pharaoh goes as far in saying to Joseph, "Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou." Here, Pharaoh appoints Joseph to be his second in command over all of Egypt. Think about how quick things had changed for Joseph. He woke up in the morning in prison, after 2 years of interpreting dreams for 2 men. And now, he's being summoned to interpret dreams for the Pharaoh. And then, being made second in command. When God says the time is right, nobody can stop what is coming, which was true for what would hit Egypt, and for each individual striving for God's plan. Pharaoh repeat his plans for Joseph, and repeating something more than once was an indication of importance, to illustrate to Joseph the changing of status. And his token of appreciation, Pharaoh hands over his signet ring as well as fine clothes and a gold chain. His life has truly changed. Joseph was not only dressing differently, as a high-ranking official in Egypt was expected to look a certain way, but he was also traveling differently, as he was riding in one of Pharaoh's chariots. Pharaoh addresses just how much authority Joseph has, explaining, "I am Pharaoh, and without your consent no man may lift his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." Joseph has his name changed and is given a wife from Pharaoh. His name was changed to Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. This may have been the same Potiphar who Joseph worked for and later arrested Joseph. There is a lot of research that indicates this may be the same guy, but we are not sure as his whereabouts after Genesis chapter 39. The name change has been discussed, and while there is not a consensus about the name, it translates to something similar to someone that God speaks to or a revealer of secrets. When all of this happens, Joseph was 30 years old, which means from the time he was arrested and imprisoned, and this list of events, 13 years had passed. Joseph leaves Egypt, and the 7 years of prosperity does occur, and he collects the food as he instructed. The Bible tells us that Joseph gathered up and stored as much food as the sand of the sea. That's truly a lot. Before the famine hit, Joseph had 2 children from Asenath. The firstborn Manasseh, translating as "God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's house." And the second Ephraim, "For God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction." As God had informed Joseph, the 7 years of prosperity would end and the famine would hit. It did. But when it did, there was bread in Egypt. The people cried for bread during this famine, and Pharaoh told the people to go to Joseph and do as he instructed them. Pharaoh had complete confidence in Joseph. Despite the measure of collecting money through taxes, the Egyptians did not starve and had food to eat during this trying time. The famine was a worldwide event, and people from all over came to Egypt to buy from Joseph. And this would increase Egypt greatly, which seemed to happen to anything and everything Joseph touched. Spurgeon writes in regards to Genesis chapter 41, verses 1 through 7. Pharaoh's nightmare has too often been my waking experience. My days of laziness have ruinously destroyed all that I had achieved in times of zealous industry. My seasons of coldness have frozen all the genial glow of my periods of fervency and enthusiasm. And my fits of worldliness have thrown me back from my advances in the divine life. I needed to beware of lean prayers, lean praises, lean duties, and lean experiences, because these will eat up the fat of my comfort and peace. If I neglect prayer for ever so short a time, I lose all the spirituality to which I had attained. If I draw no fresh supplies from heaven, the old corn in my granary is soon consumed by the famine that rages in my soul. When the caterpillars of indifference, or worldliness, or self-indulgence, completely desolate my heart, and make my soul languish, then all my former fruitfulness and growth in grace avails me nothing whatsoever.